Okay, so today we're going to be talking more about object orientation and kind of designing things using classes. So previously, what we've been doing is we've just have one class that class can have lots of different methods and lots of different properties and so on, but it's basically been one class. So we're going to, take up the complexity another notch, and we're going to look at what happens when you have multiple classes and you need them to interact as kind of one application. So what we have here on the screen is kind of a simplified, there's something called a UML diagram, which you may have seen, and if you haven't seen, you'll likely see at some point. It's kind of just like a formalized way of talking about the the architecture of an application. So what we're gonna go ahead and build right now is a model of a Chicago DMV. So basically what we want to happen is we want to have someone be able to come in and submit or fill out and submit a driver's license application. They'll submit that to the DMV, and then the DMV will look for an appropriate employee and then have the employee process that application. So there are a number of ways we could organize this. This is just one way. So we'll talk in detail about all of these components. So here we have the name of the class, which we haven't written yet, but this is the planning phase. So we have a class called driver's license application. Driver's license application has three properties. So we have license type, name, and double check. So when we create an instance of driver's license application, we're going to need to give it, we actually need to give it these first two. So we'll need the name of the person filling out the application, and we'll need the type of license that they want. Is it a commercial license? Is it a motorcycle license, etc. Okay, and then the driver's license application class is going to have two methods. One of them is going to be double check form. So before an application can be submitted, it has to be double checked. And once it's double checked, then this value will change. And then if the form has been double checked, then it will be submittable. So once we double check it, we can submit the application. Okay. So that's a driver's license application. Let's move on and talk about Dmv Employee, right? So Dmv Employee, again, this will be the name of the class, Dmv Employee. The Dmv Employee is going to have a name and a specialty. So when we create an instance of Dmv Employee, we'll have to supply a name and specialty. Dmv Employee only has one method, and that is process license. Okay, so the Dmv Employee is capable of processing a license. Now we'll move on to the Chicago Dmv class. So the Chicago Dmv class has a property called employees, and this is not something that it's going to be supplied with upon instantiation. You're going to have to use another method to populate this. This will be an array, but this is just a list of all of the employees that work at the Chicago DMV. It's got two methods. One is called move line. So move line will basically call on, right? So we can see how these classes are starting to interact now, right? So move line is going to call a method in a DMV employee. Okay, so move line is it's gonna add some logic, but then it's gonna call process license for the appropriate DMV employee, and we'll take a look at how we can implement that. Okay, and driver's license application will interact with the Chicago DMV. So when you submit an application to the DMV, that's actually going to call the Chicago DMV's move line method. So we submit the form to the DMV calls move line, and move line will call under certain conditions. It will call process license of a DMV employee. Okay, so driver's license application is basically an independent class. It interacts with Chicago DMV by calling a method. The relationship between Chicago DMV and Dmv Employee, however, is tighter. So Chicago DMV has lots of Dmv employees, right? So this is called a, unsurprisingly, has a relationship. And there are a few other kinds of relationships that you can have. So this is important now. It'll also be important when we start talking about SQL and databases and so on. But Chicago DMV has a Dmv employee, has lots of Dmv employees. Okay, so that's enough for the general overview. Okay, so now that we have we've created our UML diagram, we've planned everything out, we need to start implementing our application. So again, previously what we've done is we've had basically one file and we've put everything in one file. But at this point, once we start having multiple classes, it's going to become important to start thinking about how your code is organized in terms of files and folders. So we can't just put everything in one file anymore. We can, but that's going to create problems with organization and maintainability and everything else. So we're going to translate the three classes that we have: driver's license application, Chicago DMV, and Dmv Employee. Each one of those is going to get their own file. So Chicago DMV, Dmv Employee, and driver's license application. We're also going to have a DMV runner, which we haven't talked about yet, but that's just basically going to be the code that ties everything together. Okay, so let's start with a driver's license application. So we know the class is going to be called driver's license application, so that's easy enough. Class. Okay, and so that will work for now. Let's take a look at what we need specifically. So driver's license application is going to need to have license type, name, and a double checked. So we can go ahead and get those going. So we'll use the init, def init, self, and we'll have name and license type. And then, so these are values that are going to have to be passed upon instantiation. So we've got self.name equals name, self.license type equals license type. And then we also have this third value, which we're not going to pass in, but we're going to have to keep track of whether a given instance of the application has been double checked or not. So we can just add that here. Self.double checked, and we'll start that off as false because until you've checked it, it hasn't been double checked. So the initial value will be false. All right, so we've got our properties here. So let's take a look at what else we need. We need a double check form and submit application. So we can go ahead and add those. Def and we'll take self, and we're just going to stub out all these for now. So def submit application self, and we're going to need something else here. So notice that with submit application, so submit application is going to call the Chicago DMV's move line. So we're going to need access to Chicago DMV, in order to call this method. So we're also going to have to pass in a Chicago Dmv class. So we'll just call that generically local Dmv. Okay. So now we've kind of started with a UML diagram, and we've implemented that. It's kind of stubbed it out in code. So now let's go ahead and start implementing what we're doing. So we can start with double check form. So double check form is basically just going to change this value to true. So that's an easy one. We'll do self.doubleChecked equals true. All right, so that was easy. Submit application. So submit application, we want to have a condition. If the form has been double checked, then you can call the move line method on the Chicago Dmv instance that you've passed in. So we can write that out too. So if self.doubleChecked, and we'll do local Dmv. So this is going to be a Dmv instance which we haven't created yet, but we know that we're going to call this method. So local Dmv dot move line. Okay. And we'll just do some, notional error handling. Else, we'll do print. Please double check your form before submitting. All right. So I think that's going to be good for now. We may need to come back and modify some things, but for now, I think this is going to handle our driver's license application. So let's go here now, and we'll fill out Dmv Employee. Okay, so Dmv Employee is going to have a name, specialty, and process license method. So Dmv Employee, and we can go ahead and do the same thing that we did before. So class Dmv Employee, and we can do pass for now, and we can double check. So we need a name and a specialty. So we'll do the def init. Self name specialty, and we'll do the same stuff as before. So self.name equals name, self.specialty equals spec. All right. So we've got our we got the properties lined up now. We need to add a method, and again we can double check. So Dmv Employee has a name, a specialty, and the method is process license. Okay, so let's stub that out. So it's going to take self, and we'll go ahead and print something like that. Okay, again, we may need to come back and refactor some things, but for now we have at least the basic outline. Let's go ahead and check back our UML diagram again. We've got Chicago Dmv. So we need to create a Chicago Dmv class, and that Dmv class is going to have employees. It's going to have two methods, move line and add employee. So Chicago Dmv, and we can do the same thing we've been doing before, where we create a class, and that will be Chicago Dmv, and we'll do the def init, and this is going to take So it's going to have a list of employees, but it's not just going to start out that way, right? So we could design it that way, where when a DMV office is established, it gets a fixed set of employees, and that's that. But if we wanted to make our model a little bit more realistic, then we'll have the ability to add employees kind of at will. So what that means is that our employees we're going to have to come from basically a method somewhere in our class. So self.employee. And we could make this an array, and that would be fine. But I'm going to go ahead and make it a set just because, we probably shouldn't have two of the same employee. That wouldn't really make sense. So in order to prevent that from happening, we can just make it a set. All right. So now we have a couple of methods here. We have move line and add employee. So we can stub those out. It's going to take self. And we don't really know what that's going to do yet, so we'll just do pass. And we'll do another one. Add employee, self. And we can be pretty sure that we're going to pass an employee. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass an employee object. And we're going to get that from here. So we'll create some instances of Dmv Employee, and then we'll pass them to the Chicago DMV's add employee method, and that way they'll be added to the Chicago DMV employees list. So we can just add. So self dot employees dot add. So if this were an array, you'd use append, but for sets, you use add. So employee. All right, so now that we've got everything kind of stubbed out, we're gonna have to make some changes because we haven't figured out the details of how we're gonna do everything. But we can go to our runner now and start doing some initial testing just to see where we are. So I'm gonna start by doing the if name equals main thing. So if name equals main. So this is just going to make sure that this will only run when I'm running it directly. Okay. So again, it's nothing for us to do. So we have all these classes sitting around over here, but runner right now doesn't know about them. So how can we give access to our runner? How can we give access to these other employees and objects to our runner? We'll have to import them. So we're going to import all of the three classes that we've just made. So we'll do from Chicago DMV import Chicago DMV from Dmv Employee import Dmv Employee. So we have the syntax here. The from is the file name, and the import after the import is the specific thing. In our case, a class. So we want the Dmv Employee class from the Dmv Employee.py file. So from drivers license. All right, so we've got everything imported right now. Let's just go ahead and see if we can create, you look at our Uml diagram, looks like we can create an application without worrying about too much. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll create a driver's license application. All right. So driver's license we'll do, so Bob will apply. So Bob's license. Actually, this is Python, so we'll do snake case. Equals driver's license application. And again, we're going to pass in the name, so Bob, and the type of driver's license. So I'll just say, I don't really know, but regular. Okay, so Bob wants a regular license. And let's just print out, we'll print out the object just to see if anything works at all. So Python Dmv runner. Okay, so we have this. Let me go ahead and expand this. Okay, so we can see that we have a driver's license application object. So it works. Let's go ahead and check out in detail if we can access the name attribute. Okay, so that works. And what else do we have? We have double check form, so let's test that. Okay, and then we'll double check it. We'll see if that works. Okay, so I have the wrong name. Double check form. Okay, so looks like that works just fine. Okay, so we'll go ahead and create another, we'll create some more instances, right? That's the whole point of classes. For the most part, you want to create a whole bunch of instances. So I'll add Jane. Driver's license application, Jane. She'll have a commercial license. And we'll add a third one. We'll do Billy Bad. Billy Badass's license. And you may have guessed it. He's gonna drive a motorcycle. All right, so we've got 3 applications now. So let's go ahead and start taking, maybe we should probably also be able to do Dmv Employee. So let's do some Dmv Employees. You can make some of those. And we'll do Barb. She's gonna work at the DMV, so Dmv Employee. And we're gonna give, she's gonna have a name, so, and a specialty. And she'll handle regular licenses. And Babs, and she's going to handle commercial licenses. And then finally, we'll have Bertha. She's going to handle motorcycles. So now we have a whole bunch of licenses and a whole bunch of Dmv employees. So this is, the whole point of making classes. We can create a whole bunch of stuff based on this model, and our code is nice and dry and reusable, right? We're not wasting time setting up a totally unique object every time we want a license or a Dmv employee. Okay. So let's also go ahead and create an instance of our DMV. So we can do that here, Chicago DMV. And that is not going to take anything. So that's fairly straightforward. So now, again, we're still going to need to go through and refactor some of this stuff because it's not fully connected yet. But we can see that now we have, well, let's go ahead and run the file just to make sure it still works. Okay, so everything works, no errors, that's good. So now we have all of our applications, we have our employees, and we have our DMV. So we can try building this out now. So the Chicago DMV is going to be able to add employees. So let's go ahead and hire some employees. Right before we start processing applications, we need to have a staffed DMV. So we'll do try DMV dot add employee, and we'll start with Barb. And then we'll add Babs and Bertha. And to make sure that that worked, we can check the Chicago DMV employees set. So print okay, cool. So we got a whole bunch of DMV employee objects, notice. So this is the entire instance. So if we wanted to print their names, there's a couple things we could do. I mean, we should also probably be, well, we definitely could be writing a method on the Chicago DMV that does something like display employees. So you can go ahead and do that now. Let's just go ahead and add that. It's not on our official UML diagram, but this will make things a little easier for development. So def list employees. Let's take self. And what we're going to do is for employee in self dot employees, and we'll print, do an f string, and we'll print employee dot name and employee dot, what else did we have? Name and specialty. All right, so now we go back to our runner and we'll just call Chicago DMV and dot list employees. Okay, so Barb handles regular, Babs handles commercial, Bertha handles motorcycles. So that looks like it lines up. So far, so good. Everything's working. We started with our UML diagram. We have 3 classes. We have implemented those, at least in general outline. And now we have a runner, and we've created instances of all our classes, and it looks like they're playing nice together so far. So the kind of next challenging part. So now, Chicago DMV truly has a DMV employee, has a bunch of DMV employees. So we need to somehow connect this up so that when we submit a driver's license application, it calls Chicago DMV's move line. So let's see if we can do that. So Chicago, well, let's talk about this a sec. So we need to call move line, and move line is going to check, and it's going to check the license type, and it's going to look for an employee that matches that license type. So here we have, we can see that Barb, let's say, Babs handles commercial licenses. So if I submit a commercial license, then the DMV is going to have to make sure that the DMV hands that off to Babs and not anyone else. Okay, so we're going to need, looks like initially to pass along when we submit the application, we need to pass along the license type to the Chicago DMV. So let's do that. So we've got our application and submit application. It's going to have the local DMV. It's going to call move line, and we're going to need to pass it the license type. Okay, self.license type. Okay, and then when we go to our actual DMV, Chicago DMV, we have the move line method. So that's also going to take the license type. And then what move line needs to do is check all of its employees, and then when it finds one that can handle the application's license type, it will have that employee process the application. So what we can do here is just search through all the employees. We could do something more complicated and maybe do like round robin and have a count of, what employee has processed so many applications, but this is very simple. So we're just gonna stop on the first one that we get a hit. So we'll do for employee in self.employees, and then we'll check if the employee's specialty matches the license type. So if employee.specialty equals the passed in license type, then what we're going to do is we're going to have it process the license. Okay. But right now we don't have any way to have this process the license. So we're also going to have to call that specific employee's process license method from the DMV. Okay. So we'll do employee dot, what was this called? DMV process license. And that will be, so you can give it a license type again. So let's go back to our diagram and just see where we are right now. So we have a driver's license application, and let's say it's a commercial license plate, a commercial license. So what we do is we turn it into the DMV, and the DMV will look through all of its employees and check if any employee is able to process commercial licenses. When it finds an employee who can process commercial licenses, what it's going to do is call that employee's process license method. Okay, so the employee.processLicense method, and we'll pass in the license type, although I don't think that actually matters. We'll just keep it simple. We'll do it like this. And then when we go to our actual employee, when it processes the license, we'll do your application has been processed. We'll have an F string here. So we'll add the type of application. Actually, we will go ahead and pass that, even though it's the same as the other value. We'll pass in the license type. So your license type application has been processed by, typo here. Yeah, well, I'm a bad speller, so we'll have to deal with it. Has been processed by self.name. Okay, so we can go ahead and let's see if that works. So list employee. So let's try having Bob submit a license. So in order for Bob to submit a license, first he has to double check his license. So we'll call Bob's license dot double check. Once he's double checked, you can call Bob's license dot submit application. Okay, let's take a look here. So we call submit application with the local DMV. So he needs to submit it to a particular DMV office. So he's going to submit it to the Chicago DMV office. Double check form. Okay, so now we're calling the right method. Bob's going to double check his form. Then he's going to submit his application to the Chicago DMV. And then the Chicago DMV is going to need to move the line. It's going to move the line. It's going to look for an employee, and it's going to call the employee's process license method once it finds a match, and then we should get something like this printed out. So let's see if that runs. Okay, looks like that works. We'll comment out, let's see, we'll comment out this line. We'll run it again. Okay, your regular application has been processed by Barb. So if we double check this, Bob's license is indeed a regular license, and Barb, the DMV employee, Barb is the one who handles regular license. So it looks like that works. We can do another test here. We'll do Billy Badass's license. He's also going to submit his license to the Chicago DMV. Oh, right. You have to submit it to the DMV. Let's see. Let's see what's happening here. Okay, so this is not printing for motorcycles. Okay, so we have a typo here. So it should be motorcycle. Let's see if it works now. Okay. Okay, so there's a typo there. I apologize if you noticed that 10 minutes ago. So your motorcycle application has been processed by Barb. Your motorcycle application has been processed by Bertha. Okay, so it looks like everything is working nicely together. So just to review again, here's our UML diagram. We have our driver's license application with 3 properties, 2 methods. It's going to, the submit method is going to call a DMV's move line. DMV's move line is going to look through its list of employees and check if the license type matches the employee's specialty. If it does, it's going to call that employee's process license method, and then we'll get an indication. We'll get a print statement that says that it's been processed. So there are many ways we could have done this, but this is one way